So we have three main features in the app right now, and we're constantly improving the UX UI, also based on users' feedback. But one is the real-time feedback. So you are in the middle of the meeting, Awear detects your stress. You know, it can remind you, nudges you to maybe breathe for 5 seconds and have a much more productive rest of the meeting. So you can ground yourself again. You can be present. Get a lot of feedback from founders. Like, you know, as founders, it's a journey. Yeah. It's lots of ups and downs, right. And sometimes you don't control yourself. Sometimes you can be explosive because you're under a lot of pressure. Many founders tell us, I wish I didn't explode to my team. I completely broke the harmony in the team. I wish I didn't do that. I wish I had something that could actually tell me, hey, maybe you're in fight or flight now. Maybe you should go for a walk and then talk to your team.
Hey dear listener, thanks for tuning in. What if I told you that stress, that anxiety, and that depression you've been feeling are things that are blocking you from being able to build wealth? But all hope is not lost. On this episode, we're talking to Dr. Antonio Forenza. He's the founder of Awear, a device that's able to read your brain waves and give you real-time information on your stress levels. Imagine a device that can help us finally attack those mental health issues, whether it's depression, whether it's high stress. Here on this episode today, you're going to learn about how over 250 patents have been credited to Dr. Forenza, his knack for building things, and how does he even decide on the right things to build? I mean, he has 250 patents credited to his name. It must be very difficult to figure out what to build and what not to build. But on this episode, we also talk about how being able to build wealth can be spurred by making the right decisions. And in order to make the right decisions, we have to keep our emotions in check. So enjoy the episode, and I hope you find as much value in this episode as I found interviewing Dr. Forenza. And if you really enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, share with a friend, and let's continue to grow the podcast. Peace. Enjoy. All right, welcome to another exciting episode of GWP. As you know, our goal on this podcast is to bring you relevant information that can help you to be able to build wealth. And so, as I live here in the San Francisco Bay Area, when I come across people that I think will add value to that journey, I'm very, very excited to bring those people in front of the audience. And today we have Antonio, who is the founder of Awear, a company that we're going to learn is doing incredible things, especially when it comes to the mind. And I think getting the mind right is really important if you want to build wealth. So, Antonio, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me here. Very much excited to be here and talk about Awear.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just diving right in, I think when I was speaking to you, before the mics went hot, I was kind of wondering how you have over 250 patents credited to your name, which is really amazing because when I think about it, the average person might spend a whole lifetime and maybe not be able to build something. And you've been on this mission of just inventing and creating. What inspires you to continue to create?
I think it's just the excitement, to build something from scratch, of course, I got inspiration from a lot of pioneers of Silicon Valley. Read a lot of books. I'm very curious. I'm a very curious person. And I just love to create new stuff, build new stuff. And so the whole process is exciting, starting from an initial proof of concept, from an initial idea first, and then a proof of concept, then file patents on it when you start seeing things work, and then deep dive into the process of creating a product, hardware or software alike, and creating more patents from it. It's like a continuous process, iterative process. And I find it very exciting. Many people say hardware is hard, but it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So just it forces you, it's very Zen activity, actually. I was over the weekend just iterating through our ear patch, and it was I had a lot of fun. Have a full day, you're very focused, you with the soldering iron and do different tweaks to the product. I find it's just fascinating.
No, that's really amazing. So your journey didn't start here in the US, or it didn't start in Austin where you got your PhD. And I'm actually sorry I didn't refer to you as Dr. Antonio because you're a doctor. Tell us about your journey. How did you go from Italy and then to Austin, and then now here we are sitting here with Dr. Antonio.
So I actually, my journey started in Italy. I was finishing my master, and then I did 1 year in France. I was studying telecom. So I spent my last 20 years of my career in telecom for the most part. And then I was selected to do an internship in a startup in Silicon Valley. And it was 2001, a long time ago. It was actually a really incredible startup, brilliant minds from Stanford. We created this new technology, which now is in every router, a Wi-Fi router. When you see all those multiple antenna, that's called MIMO, multiple input, multiple output. It's a way to increase connectivity speeds in cellular networks as well as Wi-Fi networks. So that was one of the first startups that came out with it. We came out with this new way of transmitting wireless signals, and now of course it was integrating 3G system, 4G system, 5G, 6G. They all use this technology. So it was, I think that was probably the first time that I got really inspired by extremely brilliant people, and with the idea of creating new technologies from scratch, and then build a product around that. And then from there, I went to another startup that was founded by Marty Cooper, who's still an incredible mentor of mine. He's the inventor of the cell phone, so I created this startup about on smart antennas technology. Again, it's one of those technology that it's in every phone, in every base station, every cellular base station we communicate with. So that was the beginning of my journey. I got pretty lucky to start with a small internship to write my master's thesis in one of the top startups in the Valley, and that's where I learned that I love startups. I love the environment of a startup. There's a lot of growth. It's incredible to work with brilliant people. I got very inspired. And then I took a break. I went to do my PhD at UT Austin. Still in wireless communications. And then after that, I created my own, co-founded a startup, developed one of the first cellular network for private networks in using a cloud native virtualized virtual network, and that was another really, really cool experience because we started literally from an initial idea, some mathematical formulas on a whiteboard, prototyping, filing patents, and then creating different prototypes, and then a product, and then finally we deployed it in San Jose Shark Stadium.
So one of the things that was really fascinating when I was preparing for this episode is I saw papers that you've written.
Okay.
And some of these papers have been cited over 400 times.
Okay.
I was like, wow, this guy's been up to a lot of good stuff. How much work goes into, getting your PhD, all these studies, and then also finding time to create and invent things to have more than 400 patents credited to your name? How much work and, dedication has to go into that? Is it passion? Is it some level of focus that you have? Is it some sort of like mindset that maybe when you were growing up, you were, was kind of like instilled in you that kind of has translated into all the success that you've been having?
Definitely a lot of dedication, commitment. And, you go through a lot of ups and downs. PhDs, the PhD was at least my experience, but I talk to any PhD student, it's a very intense experience, right? For 3 years, sometimes more. you're fully focused on a very specific project. Basically, you go really deep down. You dive deep, very deep, more than being horizontal. It's like very vertical. You go really deep, and you come up with new ways of and create new ways of doing this. So it was very challenging. I think you talk about childhood. Maybe what I need to credit that to is my grandfather. Actually, he was like my grandfather used to build homes, and so I was really fascinated by his way of creating things. Like he could build an entire home from scratch.
Wow!
So he was an architect, but a house builder and electrician, everything right?
in
so,
one.
Exactly. And so I was spending my summers helping him out, and I just I think he seeded the passion for building from scratch. But then also during the PhD, I was blessed to work with this really incredible researcher, Robert Heath, also a doctor, and he was my advisor. And he was one of the inventors of MIMO technology. So I think I learned a lot with him. He was it was the beginning of his 10-year career, and so we really had a kind of a rush to produce, to build, and publish a lot. I don't know how many. I think I published like 6 or 7 journal papers, which is pretty amazing for a PhD. So, but I think it was just a really great teamwork with him. But yeah, I think the bottom line is that PhDs are a lot of commitment, a lot of sticking to it, regardless of the ups and downs. Sometimes you try to you need to publish, right? There's no way around. And if you can't find the right results, it's just going to change direction and eventually got to publish, right? So
it's like being a founder. You need to ship things out, right?
Exactly.
If you're not shipping things out, then you got to find something else to do.
There's a lot of similarity, and you always find your way. And that's kind of a pivoting, like you're constantly pivoting. And in product, you listen to the customers. Yeah. I guess in a PhD, you listen to your advisor and you listen to the peer reviews, because peer reviews are actually brutal, and but it really makes you very resilient. You learn not to take things personal, and it's for the sake of the science. And so you take a step back and you say, okay, I need to fix this, fix that. It's very similar dynamics as building a company. Just the goal is different. It's basically publishing and advancing science rather than advancing a product.
Yeah. Wow, that's exciting. So jumping from PhD, now you go ahead to create this new company that you've been working with. How long have you been working on this project with Awear?
A little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years. So a little over 2 years, you're inspired by neuroscience and also, how the brain works and things like that. Mindfulness and neuroscience. I think those are the exact things that must have influenced your thinking. And then you go ahead to start Awear. What is like your ultimate goal with Awear? If someone is hearing about Awear for the first time, when it's all said and done, what do you want people to remember about Awear?
So Awear, it's a platform that allows people to track your brain and your mind, basically. So it's a wearable that you wear every day. You wear it and you forget about it. And in the background keeps tracking your biomarkers, just like Aura does for our heart rate, and our sleep, our physical wellness, except that we're doing for the mental wellness. So in fact, we call it Aura for mental wellness. And the idea is that we know so little about our brain. Like when I first started this project a little over 2 years ago, I started talking to neuroscientists. Like I've been always passionate about neuroscience and the brain, how it works. I find it's one of the most fascinating topics because it's the most unknown one, right? And talking to them, like some of them they became our advisors as well. Is like the question was like we don't know enough about our brain because we only study it inside a lab. But what happened to our brain when you're recording a podcast, when you are, outside running, when you are at an event? And so the idea of Awear is to track what happens to your brain constantly. And so today we are doing for managing stress and tracking your emotions. But our long-term vision is really to track the health of your brain throughout your life. And so maybe we might discover things that we didn't know before. This is speculation at this stage because there is some research, but not necessarily applied to our product. But maybe we might discover things about neurodegenerative disease or stroke or definitely seizure. It's another thing. We're working also with Stanford, UCSF on specific use cases for mental health. So the goal of Awear is really to shed lights on our brain, what happens to our brain when we are outside of the lab. And so provide a platform for neuroscientists, but also consumers to understand themselves better and understand their brain better.
Yeah. I've always found it very fascinating that I can pick up my cell phone and I know almost everything about my phone, right? It's crazy. You give me my laptop, I know everything about my laptop. I can find you whatever you're looking for on my laptop. But then you give someone the brain, which basically made the phone and the laptop that I've just mentioned, and we know almost nothing about the brain, which is something that you just mentioned. What are some of the surprising things that you've learned from whether it's like talking to these neuroscientists or even working on this amazing project? What are some of the things that you've learned about the brain that most people don't know?
I think it's the ability, the neuroplasticity, the ability of our brain to self-heal. It's just, I find it's the most fascinating things. And that's what we're tapping with Awear. With Awear, in a way, we're not providing a pill, if you wish. We're not providing anything. The goal of Awear is we have everything we need to self-heal our brain. And I've experienced myself.
How did you experience it?
Well, I went through, some ups and downs in my life. And it was close to burnout 7 years ago. And I started trying different mental health interventions, like meditation was a very powerful one that I discovered more recently 2 years ago. I've been practicing for 2 years Vipassana meditation, which is really focusing on it's like body scanning basically, but also psychotherapy. And all these mental health interventions been extremely powerful, and all of them, they provide a way to you really realize that you can self-heal yourself. With the help of a therapist or with the help of meditation. But it's really, I think what fascinated me the most is the ability of your brain to really self-heal. And that's what Awear is about. It puts a mirror to your brain. Like you said it, like it's, we use our brain for everything in life, everything, yet we never observe it, right? We never spend time observing our mind, observing our brain. And so that's what Awear does. It's a mirror to yourself to see when you're degenerating, when you are in a stress. Like another things that I learned is, especially at the beginning of this project, how stressed I am throughout the day. And we believe that we are not stressed because our brain is so good in normalizing itself. And so that's when you put a mirror on your brain and say, gosh, I'm much more stressed than I thought. It's just like with Aura, right? You put a mirror on your brain, on yourself, and you say, this is how little I slept, right? So so you start adjusting your habit, and it's all about adjusting your habit. Again, learn more about your emotions, learn more about your stress level, and adjust the habits. So start cultivating new healthy habits.
But that's interesting though. So this Awear, from what you're saying, it's sort of like a mirror that is showing you how your brain is kind of like functioning. So if I'm stressed, Awear is going to kind of nudge me and say, hey, this is where your stress level is. So let's just say maybe I'm getting ready for this job interview that I've been waiting for a long time. I've gone to school for 4 years and finally I got that job interview that I wanted, and I have Awear on. How is Awear going to help me to be able to get that job, right? In terms of how is it going to be able to help me regulate my mind, my stress, my emotions to be able to get that job?
Sure. So we have 3 main features in the app right now, and we're constantly improving the UX UI, also based on users feedback. But one is the real-time feedback. So you are in the middle of the meeting, Awear detects you're stressed. It can remind you, nudges you to maybe breathe for 5 seconds and have a much more productive rest of the meeting. So you can ground yourself again. You can be present. Get a lot of feedback from founders. Like, as founders, we go, it's a journey. Yeah. It's lots of ups and downs. Right. And sometimes you don't control yourself. Sometimes you can be explosive because you're under a lot of pressure. Many founders tell us, I wish I didn't explode to my team. I completely broke the harmony in the team. I wish I didn't do that. I wish I had something that could actually tell me, hey, maybe you're in fight or flight now. Maybe you should go for a walk and then talk to your team. So there is the real-time feedback. There is also the journaling part where we correlate, we track your emotion. I have here on my phone 6 months worth of brainwave data. It's probably one of the most extensive EEG data sets ever built because because I wear the device constantly, right? I'm wearing right now. And so it constantly records. And so now I can start correlating, my brainwaves and my emotions to different activities from my calendars, appointments. So I can start identifying stressors in my life and start adjusting my daily habits based on that. And then there is more like an intervention. Those two are what we call the vitamins, but there's also the painkiller. The painkiller is more like a therapist. It's really an AI coach. This is mental wellness. It's an AI coach that knows yourself very intimately, knows your emotions very intimately. It's always available on your phone. So if you're seeing your therapist maybe next Monday, you don't have to wait that long. It's here on your phone and knows your habits, knows your emotion throughout your life, and so can give you very personalized tips to enhance your well-being in the moment.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I really love that. But there's a lot of wearables these days in the market. So I have, people have their Apple Watch. You talked about the Oura Ring. There's other things that are even tracking your calories and what you're eating. Can you explain to us exactly how Awear works compared to, let's say, my smartphone, my Apple Watch, or some of these other wearables that have become available?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you see, I wear a lot of those. Yeah.
You're the perfect example.
The perfect example. Yeah. Although I've seen somebody who wears more wearable than me, but hard to believe. But so the way I like to frame it is, it is actually Peter Attia talks about this in his book Outlive. He talks about the three major pillars of longevity, which is fitness and sleep. There is nutrition, and there is emotional well-being. Okay. So if you look at all the wearables on the market today, they're covering those two pillars, which is exercise and sleep. So you have Oura Ring, you have the Apple Watch, you have Garmin, Samsung. Cover nutrition, so you have all the CGM patches, but there's really nothing today that tracks your emotional well-being. Yeah. So there's a lot of neurotech devices out there that track focus, track the meditations. They're in the form of headbands or maybe form factor that you would not necessarily wear continuously. There is no wearables today that has a form factor that you feel compelled to wear every day and then measures your emotional well-being. And so that's what we're covering. That's the gap in the market, and that's what we're covering. And I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago of Tom Hill, the CEO of Oura, who I have high regard for, and he really inspires me
for his
leadership style. And he was telling it just this. He was saying that the future wearable, it's a combination of different wearables, not just not going to be one wearable. It's going to be a combination of wearables that provide you with comprehensive, a holistic picture of your health. In fact, Oura just 2 weeks ago integrated glucose monitoring, continuous glucose monitoring to the app. The acquisition of Veri and investment from Dexcom. So you can see this convergence of different wearables into one platform or multiple platforms to provide a holistic view of your well-being.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. I love that. And so when I think about all this is very exciting stuff, right? Because I think we've come a long way, right? From you started creating patents for 3G, right, which was barely connecting to the internet, just a few megabytes, and you could barely browse the internet, all the way up to the point where now we have 6G. So we've, sixth generation, like we've developed a lot to the point where now we're able to measure all sorts of things, right? So I start to think and wonder if I'm able to kind of track my emotions and be able to figure out where my stress levels are, where my, how I'm feeling and things like that. Is that going to help people to make better financial decisions? So if I'm able to track how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, would that help me to be able to make better financial decisions based on, some of the research that you've done and all the work that you've done with Awear? What do you think about that?
I don't have the data to prove that, but I would think so. I think like self-awareness, it's what makes you more grounded. It makes you act out of power, if you wish, a place of groundedness rather than a place of fear.
Yeah.
So when we are in fight or flight, we act out of fear, right? And that's where, our mind goes to because of our traumas, basically fundamentals. They are traumas that affect us, keep coming back, especially from our childhood, keep coming back and reproposing. We all have those trauma. There's people that are aware of it, people that are not, but we all do.
Yeah.
Some people more, some people less. And so, I think acting, is the difference between acting out of fear, out of a place of anger, of shame, versus a place of being grounded, of being self-aware of your emotions. And I gotta believe that if you're self-aware of your emotion, also financially, you make much better decision. You're not reacting, say, to a stock market going down, but you're actually, you can actually take some steps and be more grounded and make more, more sensible decisions.
Yeah, because I can imagine, a trader on a trading floor at, let's say, I don't know, whatever bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, wearing Awear, and stock markets is turning red, and the Awear is kind of like, hey, you're stressed and you should probably not sell those stocks,
not
right?
Sell those stocks.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to learn so many use cases. Again, we're providing a platform where we're constantly learning from the user, from the interviews, and so it's going to be a journey. That's why I call it a platform, and we're going to learn from the users.
Yeah, because I can also picture kind of like a classroom where students are learning and everyone has Awear on, and the teacher that's in front of the class sort of has a monitor and is able to see how people are reacting to what they're teaching. Because right now AI is kind of doing that, right? Where it's kind of like teaching you based on your levels, whether it's like your understanding level, your comprehension level, or whatever it is. It tracks all of that, and it actually, data shows that it's enhanced learning by maybe 3x compared to what like a regular teacher without AI will be doing. So, I mean, the use cases are outstanding. Even in my day-to-day job, I can imagine, myself, my colleagues, all of us having Awear. And from time to time, it's kind of like having your Oura ring on, right? It's from time to time, you're getting these nudges to help you make better decisions, whether it's, hey, you should get up and grab some water and hydrate, or you should go get some sunlight if some is available, and things like that. So this could be,
Yeah, it could be a very powerful. In fact, we are actually doing a study with the University in Los Angeles, specifically on that, like stress for students when they are about to start a test.
Yeah.
And so it turns out there's a lot of biomarkers that can be detected from your brainwaves and EEG technology.
Yeah.
And so what if now you can actually personalize education? I was myself terrified for my elementary school teacher. It was a completely different times. And so I think different students learn at different times, they need different pace. And so this could be like, if you can now layer in the emotions, the emotional factor.
Yeah.
What did you fail the test because you were too anxious or because you really didn't study?
Yeah.
So there's so many.
Or you were over-prepared.
Yeah.
And then you just crashed.
Yeah. So So there's a lot of flavors, and they were not accounting for, and they are given by our own emotion. Now, if you bring the awareness of that in the classroom, I think there's potential, but also understanding, there's a lot of anxiety within high schools. If you look at the number, are pretty scary. High school students with suicidal thoughts, so much pressure on them. So how can we do something to understand better their emotions deep down?
No, this is revolutionary technology, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about doing the podcast, is getting to talk to great minds like you, because again, we're talking about just the mental aspects of the mental aspect of the benefits that Awear can have. But even on the other side of it, we haven't even touched on diseases yet, right? Whether it's like obesity or Alzheimer's, like all these diseases that already exist, because this brings my mind to Neuralinks, right? So I think we've gotten to a point that we've realized, in order to start healing, a lot of it can start in the brain. Because as I remember, a while back, I got injured in my knee, and I went to go see a physical therapist. And the first thing she did was to educate me about why I feel the pain that I feel. It's not even the injury or anything, but she tried to explain to me how the brain processes the pain that I'm feeling. And that was a game changer for my healing, right? Because she didn't start by saying, hey, let's move the leg this way and that way. She would move the leg and she would tell me, this is why this is happening. This is happening in your brain. And then she pulled out a whole skeleton, and then she would move it and tell me what's moving. And that whole thing kind of like just changed my whole perception about pain and why I was feeling the pain. And I think about things like Neuralinks now, where we're able to implant a device into someone who's, paralyzed, and now they can actually function, obviously like with the help of other people, but now they can actually do things that they couldn't do, whether it's win a chess game or, watch videos or create videos on YouTube and things like that. It's really exciting where this thing is headed. What do you think the future of this is?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the pain. I find it fascinating. Also, the chronic pain, that it's actually becomes more of a mental thing, because your brain basically believes that you still have the pain, but the pain is gone, and so you're basically retraining your brain. It's like the phantom limb issue, right? That you believe you still have the limb, but it's a matter of retraining your brain. And in terms of other applications, I think there is a lot to discover. You mentioned neurodegenerative disease. That's something I'm very passionate about. Unfortunately, I lost my dad because of Parkinson's disease 15 years ago. And I remember that, it was a long journey. It was an 18-year long journey until he passed away. And back then, we knew close to nothing about Parkinson's disease. We still know very little. I think they just discovered it's somehow related to the guts, inflammation potentially coming from the guts. And so my hope is that with this platform, we might actually, again, shed lights on things about our brain that we don't know, and either for our day-to-day life, but also for more serious or more serious conditions like neurodegenerative disease, or maybe stroke, and other other diseases.
Yeah. So I know we kind of like talked about how, I guess we joked about how, like a trader on a trading floor at, let's say, Wells Fargo or Bank of America could be wearing Awear, and it could be helping them make some decisions. Do you think people could start to use this to get sort of like an edge, right? Whether it's in their career. So again, like if I'm going for a job interview and I use Awear, maybe I'm able to get a high sense of my emotions and perform really well. Or if I'm a stock trader or in a very high stress environment, whatever the job is, do you think these types of devices is going to start giving people an edge in whatever career or field they're in?
I think so. I mean, I all these devices we're already wearing today, they are all enhancing performance, right? I mean, athletes are wearing it, high performers are wearing it. Bring the awareness of your sleep, bring the awareness of your physical activity. I myself lost 40 pounds by tracking my exercise through the Apple Watch. So that's actually what inspired me to create Awear. Lost 40 pounds and in 12 months, and I said, what if I could lose 40 pounds of stress? How could I measure it? And that's how I came up with the idea of Awear. So absolutely, I'm using Awear all the time and see, my stress level over time, my stress level during a meeting, so I can, self-adjust myself in the moment, self-regulate my emotions in the moment, and have a much more productive meeting. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's our goal, and that's what we hear from a lot of our customers' interviews is the ability of self-regulating your emotions in real time, but also tracking your habits, tracking your stressors, and readjusting your habits.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And one of the things that you also talked about is, the mental health, right? And I think there's a mental health crisis to some degree. Maybe when we were in COVID, I think it was probably at an all-time high. Right now, I don't know where it is because I haven't done much reading on it lately. But do you, in your point of view, how do you think people can start using devices like this to, fight against mental health?
Yeah, so I think that's our purpose is really enhance your mental wellness every day, and just bring the awareness day to day of what your biomarkers tell you about your emotional well-being.
Yeah,
and the first step to healing is really the self-awareness of it. Is really recognizing in the moment what your emotion, labeling your emotion. It's such a simple thing, but 7 years ago, that's what really changed my life. Specifically, this meditation teacher who's also a psychiatrist. He was one of the people that really transformed my life, and with a simple task of labeling your emotions that completely transforms you. The moment you bring the awareness in the moment of your emotions, now you can start self-regulating yourself, and that's I think the foundation of mental wellness.
Yeah. So then let's say I unfortunately maybe I'm dealing with some depression, and I come across this device, Awear. How do I start to we've already talked about sort of like the brain doing that self-healing. And I think a lot of that self-healing can be sped up if you have data that's kind of like guiding you in the right direction. So let's just say, maybe I'm suffering with depression, and, a good friend of mine comes and says, Papa, here you go. Try this device that, kind of tracks your brain waves and sees where you are. How do you think that journey is going to play out, right? Am I going to be able to use Awear to now start detecting where the roots of my depression is? Or is it just going to help me to be able to say, maybe when I'm moving and maybe I'm jogging, I'm running, I feel so much better and I'm getting a better read from this device. But when I'm sitting down and I'm kind of like just sobbing, the device just goes off and kind of like gives me these nudges. How is that going to play out?
Yeah, so I think it's the way we see is there's going to be like maybe two types of users. Those ones that like vitamins, and so they just like to track their numbers and adjust their daily habits based on that. Like a little bit like I did with the Apple Watch, right? I knew I had a target of 1,000 calorie burn every day. And so if I didn't close the circle, I would just go for a walk before going to sleep or stuff like that, right? So I was self-motivating myself to do that. And then there is the painkiller, which is the AI coach. And that I think it's more maybe for people, but also for myself, for everyone. When we're, the best therapist, what they do, they don't tell you what to do. they mirror your emotions, and they let you self-heal yourself. That's, I think, the best therapy that I've had. LLM does that really well. And that's how that's what our AI agent does. So listens to you, mirrors your emotions, offers different perspective, different point of views. And that's what you need in the moment where you're in a desperate crisis, when you're ruminating, where you are in fight or flight.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that it's a companion that makes you think, offers different perspective. Because when we are in fight or flight, we are in tunnel vision. Right? We stop thinking of all the other possibilities. We are focused on one way of doing things, right? So we need that voice that tells us, okay, well, how about this? How about that, right? And it turns out that LLM and with a finely tuned AI agent, which is what we're building, can do that really well. Yeah. Actually, there's some studies that show that LLM is actually perceived as more empathetic than some physicians. It's pretty amazing. Now, we're not going to replace humans. We're not going to replace physicians, and that's not our goal. We're not going to replace therapists or life coaches. We are just offering a tool that maybe if the next time you see your life coach is, again, next Monday, you don't have to wait 1 week, but you can actually just pull up your phone and talk to this AI coach.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Do you think AI is going to help us to be able to kind of combat this mental health crisis that we have?
I think there's a lot of potentials. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's
in which way? Is it because it's more empathetic as compared to humans, as you've shared, or is it because it's going to be better at learning more about us and being able to satisfy our needs in a more efficient way than maybe humans can?
I think there's multiple reasons. There is the diagnosis part. Like I spent 20 years in telecom, and I'm willing to bet there's LLM that knows much more than me about telecom, you know, digital signal processing. Because, you know, no matter how many patents I created, how many products I created, the amount of data that LLM has is way beyond what I can potentially, you know, get in 20 years. And the same thing applies not just in engineering or in product development, but also in psychology and in any field. I think that's a really incredible tool that we have with AI is the amount of data that you can process and can actually have a much better diagnosis of your mental wellness and what to do in different intervention. It turns out there is some study on that too, that AI actually can have a much more precise outcome when it comes to diagnostics. But there is also the personalization as well. Now, if you feed to AI all your personal data, it can start creating patterns. It can start identifying patterns. Every time you do this activity, you are stressed. Every time you do this. And so it can actually help you identify those patterns.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the power of AI is as related to mental wellness. Yeah. But more broadly, well-being. You know, like you see all the other apps they are using, like all the insights you get on the other wearables. They are designed just for that, for identifying things and patterns that you don't see yourself, or it's really hard to identify yourself.
Yeah. No, the future is bright, I think. And so if someone is listening to us right now, maybe you're wondering, you know, so how can I use this Awear device that we've been talking about for almost 20 minutes or more? I think the important thing to note here is it's number one, it helps you with your decision making. And when you think about this podcast, what we talk about is building wealth, right? And a lot of building wealth has to do with decision making. And so the way I think about these wearables and kind of having all this data is all of a sudden you have all these, call them biomarkers, right? But you have all these indicators that helps you to make decisions. And also if you're making decisions, you can always kind of backtest those decisions to see, you had a couple cheesecakes this week. How did that turn out? Right. Or you kind of didn't hit the gym this whole week. How are you feeling by the end of the week when you didn't hit the gym versus the other week when you actually went to the gym? What's that feeling looking like? So you're kind of like getting all this data that can kind of like help guide you, make you hopefully a better person and make you even smarter. And so that's what makes me very excited about devices like this, besides all the plethora of benefits that we've touched on, whether it's, diseases or mental health or, all these other things. So thank you so much for sharing. So the next thing that I want to shift into is I kind of want to talk about your inventions, and we've talked about the many patents that's been credited to you. I'm sort of wondering, how do you kind of figure out what is an idea worth pursuing, right? Because in a world where you can go in a million directions, how do you kind of pick one thing to say, this is that one thing I'm gonna work on?
So I think it all starts with I think it depends, right? Because from telecom was probably different, but from this product in this company, it started really with a personal experience. Like I saw that mental wellness it's a big deal it was a big deal for me. It was transformational for me. To discover those tools that put me in a much better mental state, and I saw the outcome was better focus, better productivity, better efficiency, better life satisfaction, more happiness, you name it. It's like uncountable number of. So it all started, in this case, it all started from a personal experience. And then I went out and I started seeing, does this apply to other people? Is it just me, or is it applied to other people? And so I think it is the user research, the user journey. And I think that's something that this company has really taught me a lot. And something I learned actually at Techstars too. They are very intentional about user research, and there was a good gym for me as well to create a sensitivity to your customers and understand what they really want. And then you start, okay, now they want it. This is what I think they want, and you start iterating through the product, and you start, come up with the first prototype. You try to get there as rapidly as possible. I call it the duct taped prototypes. You just grab existing parts, existing devices, and put them all together, and just to have an idea if it works, and then you start giving to other people and see if that works, and then you start building your own stuff. Come up with new ideas. It's an iterative process, and then every time you go back to the customers and test it out, see if it works. I'm reading this book, really great book by Tony Fidel, Build. It's all about products, and there's a lot of one of the things that really resonated with me is the building a product as a combination of listening to your customers, but also to your own intuition. And so there's a continuous back and forth between those two. You start with your intuition, then you validate your intuition. And that's, I think, the process of creating and inventing something. It's an iterative process.
No, that's really, and it sounds very exciting, right? Because you're taking something from sort of like a blank slate, and then you give it life, and then you just continue to iterate from there. And sometimes you don't even know what it's going to become, right? And then the next thing you know, it becomes Facebook, and it does everything in the world, or whatever it could become. So there's always that potential, which is really something exciting that I hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast, you're finding that inspiration to hopefully start something, or if you're kind of like tinkering with a couple ideas and trying to figure out which one should you kind of like lean toward. I think you lay out a great blueprint, which is number one, listening to the customers, and then number two, listening to your own intuition, because a lot of times your intuition wouldn't steer you wrong. And if you combine that with listening to your customers, you could be the next person that creates a great product. So thank you so much for sharing that. And you also did work in R&D for a while. So you're doing a lot of research and development, which is really exciting. So sometimes when I'm looking at companies to kind of invest in and looking for opportunities, I like to look at their financial statements and finding how much money they're spending on R&D. So Meta, for example, right now they have this Reality Labs, which they spend tons of money in that lab, whatever they're developing in there. So a lot can go into R&D. What are some of the things that are really surprising that most people don't know that happens behind the scenes in R&D?
I guess very messy, maybe. Like you get to try
duct
with
tapes,
a
lot of duct tapes,
and a lot of things that don't work, a lot of things that work, hopefully, a lot of things that will eventually make into a product, and then a lot of other things that will never make into a product. So in the process, you file a lot of patents. Maybe sometimes you file patents that are not making into a product today, but they will make in 5 years from now because maybe it's too early. So I think that's been my experience with R&D. It's and then when you get to a point where you feel, this is mature, this can actually work, and that's when you start building a product. In every product, there's always an R&D. Like I feel that the R&D for Awear will never end, right? We're gonna do more and more R&D, refinement of the products, both the hardware, the software, specifically on the software. Creating all these new use cases. Maybe more medical related applications, which we are unaware of today. And so I feel that R&D is an ongoing process. Some labs are more concepts, ideas. Some other, they are more really hands-on and much closer to the product. I feel at Awear we're kind of in between. We started with a lot of neuroscience the first couple of years, and now we're much more focused towards the product itself, and it's always going to be an iterative process.
So now you're more focused on the hardware, but also software. So our hardware I would say is relatively simple. Like there was a lot of work. There's a lot of work in miniaturizing and designing the industrial design, mechanical design. We have an incredible industrial design I've been working with for over a year. He's just incredible. Also, among the other things, he designed the 8 Sleep, just really have a lot of fun with him. But there's a lot of also in the I think like we are a lot like Whoop in a way, where they innovate a lot more on the software. But also Aura does the same thing, by the way. So yeah, sure, we're gonna come up with new version of the hardware. But I see a lot of innovation in the software. Awesome. And going back to the R&D, I definitely find this very fascinating. So what happens when you work on an idea that doesn't work out, right? Because I think about people who have jobs where maybe you take some sort of risk, for example, right? And that thing doesn't work, and sometimes people get fired for taking that risk, right? Because it's a lot of money gets spent, a lot of resources, time, and then they get fired because that thing didn't work, right? A good example is Nike's former CEO, Danaher, who, when COVID started, he basically pulled all of Nike's products out of these retail chains. So Dick's Sporting Goods and wherever else, Macy's and so on. They pulled all of the Nike products and sold Nike products solely online. It was a great strategy. Nike made a lot of money around that time. But then we started, easing the restrictions from COVID, and people were getting back into the stores, but the Nike products weren't back in the store. So they ended up losing money, a ton of money. And you can look at the stock price right now, dropped significantly. And eventually they ended up firing this guy. And so, you think about that. This guy took a risk. It worked at some point. And then at a certain point, it just didn't work anymore. And he got fired. How do you kind of process that when you're in the R&D space? Because you're trying a lot of new ideas. You're spending a lot of money, a lot of resources. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah. I try to do. I try to always follow like a lean approach, and try to learn as fast as I can. There's gonna be so many times that you're gonna have to pivot, and things that you think could work, they don't, and maybe it's just be open. But all in all, I'm very conscious and very mindful of how I spend, the money of the company, especially the money of the investors. So, and but it's just, I think it's just in my DNA to be like very lean. I wouldn't feel comfortable to spend huge budget. And actually, the type of R&D I've done for the last 25 years has been a lot like that. That's why I think I like startups, because they force you to work, to create very innovative ideas with very, very, very small budgets. Very small budget. I mean, if you see what we created with a small budget in the last 2 years, people say, what? How do you do that? Necessity is the mother of invention. And when you don't have too many means of building, or you don't have that much capital, you think out of the box. You become, it forces you to become much more real in your approach with R&D.
Yeah. And if someone is kind of like listening to this, right, and maybe during a job where it requires them to take a lot of risk, right, and sometimes it doesn't work, they may be scared that, hey, if I continue to, go on this path where I'm taking very bold risk and this thing doesn't work, I might get fired. But what you're saying is just being more creative, right? Sort of like thinking about how you can do more with less, right?
Yeah.
And I think a good example, or a recent example of that, is DeepSeek, right? So, the US, we have all these restrictions on semiconductors and chips, and they can't get into a lot of places. And so, we're here in the US thinking, no one is as advanced with AI as we are. And then comes in DeepSeek, right? And they're using less chips than some of these mega, contributors are using. And they basically changed the game with what they're doing with just a little bit of resources. And so that goes to show how you can do more with less, especially with startups also, right? Because a lot of times you have these like bold, grand ideas, but you have to start really small and then continue to iterate at the idea and continue to make it better. So thank you.
Be lean gives you a lot of, I think I see it as an asset more than anything, because it forces you to find really the people they're truly motivated to join your team. It forces you to think out of the box when you build your product and when you do your R&D.
Yeah.
Of course, in the back of your mind is you always say, like, I wish I had more money. I could do it. But if you have too much money, like I think if there's a sweet spot of moving too fast or too slow.
Yeah.
I think there's a sweet spot, and I like to try to navigate in that sweet spot.
Yeah.
When I don't, maybe grow to the team too fast, with the risk of bringing in talents that are maybe not a great fit for this project, and that you pay the consequences later on. But also in the way I approach the R&D, making choices like spending huge capital for things that don't work, as opposed to smaller capitals, so smaller investments, and try different things and then adjust and pivot. Keep pivoting your product, keep pivoting your R&D.
Yeah. And I think that's where great things happen, right? When you're doing more with less. So thank you for sharing that. You did spend a lot of time in, kind of like working in corporate. So I think Rocketing you worked at, and, some in telecom, like you mentioned, you spent about 25 years. Are there some experiences that you learned throughout that journey that has transferred into you being a startup founder now? And the reason I ask that is because maybe, someone is listening to this podcast, they're a young adult and they're trying to figure out, maybe they're just getting out of college and they're trying to figure out, should I go start my first company, or should I, go work in corporate America and try to learn some skills, and then hopefully translate that into whatever I build? Are there some skills or some experiences that you gained working all those years in telecom that has helped you to be a successful startup founder?
Yeah, I think if I had to do it again, maybe I would start my career working in a big company because it gives you the structure of doing things. I was just so eager to work in startups, and I felt my comfort zone was in startup. But if I had to do it again, maybe spend the first 5 years in a big company. You learn the structure of building things, which sometimes the smaller startups they don't have that because you're in such a rush to get the product shipped.
Ship something out.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that of big companies. The other things the big companies gives, like before Awear, I was head of R&D at Rakuten. I was reporting to the CEO of Rakuten Symphony, and I think what taught me is really the ability to work with. I was coordinating a bunch of different, 5 different business unit. To one of my mission was to increase the patent portfolio. And so it was a major effort to coordinate all these business units. So it gives you the ability to really put together many different minds that are traveling in a lot of different direction, and have them all agree on pursuing something that will boost your KPIs, boost the mission that you're trying to accomplish, basically. So there's a lot of positive things in large companies. I personally feel more comfortable in smaller companies. That's why I went back to create my own company. I like the speed of execution in a smaller company. I like the direct communication. We have an extremely open and transparent communication with any members in our team. We are very, very open. I love that. It just actually when you do that, your creativity is multiplied because you're not spending brain cycles in ruminating or maybe politics, but you spend those into creating something. So I think that's what I really like smaller companies, startups. It's there's much more room if you create the right team. There is much more room to truly innovate, truly express yourself, truly come up with brilliant ideas, without having to. I guess there's much more freedom to express yourself. But I think again, there's positive things in both places. Yeah,
but I think you laid it out pretty well. I think definitely, spending time in a big company is a good place to start, because I think it's important for you to see those politics. It's important for you to see the bureaucracy, to see kind of like how things unfold in these big companies. That way, like you need a parity. You need something to compare with, so that when you start your company, you can say, I saw this, I don't want that here, right?
Exactly.
Because when you're the founder and the CEO of a startup, for example, you're cultivating that culture, right? It's the culture, so much of it relies on you, how you react to change and how you communicate with people, how you celebrate the small wins and the big wins. And even when things don't go well, how you celebrate all those things is what forms the culture. And when you work in a big company, you're going to see so much of that, and you get to take a lot of notes. And then when you start your company, because what people forget sometimes is, maybe if you're just getting started, you're going to think, I just have to build a product and that's it. I have a company. But what most people don't realize is it's the people that actually make the company.
Yeah.
And when you work in big corporations, that's when you start to learn that. You start to realize how, people start to form. Like you go to a lot of big companies and you ask them, hey, what do you love about this place? Most people are going to tell you it's the people. I love the people here. Maybe they have great product, but a lot of times, maybe 8 times out of 10, they're going to tell you, I love the people. And the reason that happens is because maybe there's someone at the top that understood people is number one, right? And then they build the business around people, and then it trickles down into the product and, the whole downstream. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, beautifully said, actually. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Are there certain things that you wanted to talk about today that I haven't brought up yet, even though I still have a laundry list of things that I would love to ask you, but I'll probably try to chill.
Not that I can think of. But I'm just very grateful for this interview.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Okay, so I have another thing that I wanted to ask you in that case. Mm-hmm. So we've talked a lot about the patents that you create. One of the things that we love to talk about on the podcast is building wealth, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, the way I think about patents is like, I create music, let's say, right? And I put the music out there. I put it on Spotify, and people listen to my music, and I get paid. It becomes passive income for me, right? By creating music. And I'm using music as an example. It's very similar to if I created a company, for example, the person that created Gap is not sitting at every single Gap store and selling clothes. They created Gap and employed a bunch of people, and now they're kind of collecting that money that's coming in. When I'm creating these patents, is that a way to build wealth? Is that a path to build wealth? Because, someone might be listening and saying, you know what, Dr. Antonio, I'm inspired. I'm going to start creating patents and start putting them out there so I can use that to build wealth. Is that a path?
I don't necessarily believe so. I think it's a different thing than royalties in music. Patents are a slightly different tool.
Okay.
Like I think.
So how do patents?
Like I think big companies can generate definitely revenue.
Okay.
From patents.
Yeah.
Like Qualcomm has a whole business around that, and patent licensing. But I'm not sure a startup would necessarily do that. I think it's more like a tool for startups to defend their technology in case things go wrong in the future and somebody copies it. But in startups, I don't see patents necessarily as a way to generate revenue. Although maybe somebody can successfully build a business around it. But I think what's important in startup is building a product that your customers will use, period. It's like be very sensitive to your customer, understand what they want, product market fit, right? And just give them the product. Patents is a byproduct. It's something that protects your idea, protects your invention, but I wouldn't necessarily think of it as a way to successfully build a business as a startup.
Yeah.
A big companies, I guess, again, it's a totally different story.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that, because my mind starts to go ting, 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 ting. Let's go create some patents. So if that's not a path, it's definitely a good way to think about it. But what if like you said, Qualcomm makes money off this, but so it's possible that a patent could be something that's valuable, and maybe a company, like a big company, might just say, hey, this is a great patent. We're going to take it and use it. And maybe that could be a path. Is that possible?
I mean, it is definitely possible.
Yeah.
I think if I need to go back, I mean, it's basically to defend your patent, you still need an army of lawyers, right? So do you want to spend your money, your funds in attorneys to defend your patent or not? So I don't know the music business too well, but my hunch is that in music is much easier to claim that this is my my song. I wrote it. This is the melody. This is the lyrics.
Right.
It's more like black and white. And I feel that with patents is slightly different.
Yeah.
I'm not discouraging
definitely.
people from doing it. Just not how I like to operate.
Yeah.
I think I see patents more like a way to protect the technology than making money out of it. But I'm pretty sure somebody was able to successfully generate money revenue also from just licensing without just by being a smaller company.
Yeah. Awesome. So these days you're Dr. Forenza, and you've you've been in telecom for many, many years. Now you're in startups. What is some advice that maybe someone has given you that has stuck with you up to this point, where maybe that advice has helped shape your path, and to this day it continues to help shape your path?
I remember like when I started my PhD and I was leaving my job, and I was in a car with a colleague of mine. He probably doesn't even remember that, but I asked him, so he was a PhD. He already got his PhD. He was a doctor already by then. And I asked him, do you have any advice for me as I start, like next month, I'm going to start my PhD. I'm going to Texas. And he asked me, ask questions, be curious. And that small little thing just stick to me. And I try to apply to everything I do, like just be curious.
Yeah.
Be curious, ask questions. There's never silly questions, you know. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the advice that I apply in everything I do.
Yeah.
I approach anything I build with curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're a startup founder, like you need to be asking these questions, right?
Totally, yeah, in everything, and not just on the R&D side, not just on the product side, but anything, you know, just always look with curiosity.
Yeah,
this is different than what I expected. Okay, let's be curious. Let's see where this takes me. Let's maybe it's a different way to look at the business model, a different way to look at my financial model, a different way of selling this product, a different way of addressing a user's needs. I think you can apply curiosity to any part of your business.
Yeah. Awesome. And are there any books or maybe podcasts that you listen to that has helped, you know, shape you to be the founder that you are these days?
Yeah, I read a lot of books that, especially in the last 2 years, about psychology, neuroscience. Huberman podcast, definitely.
Yep.
I love to listen to that podcast. You know, books, Atomic Habits is a great one. More recently, another great book, psychology book. I don't want to talk about it. It's about male depression. It really goes deep down into how trauma shape male depression. And I love to read a lot about neuroscience, psychology. It's there's been my books for the last 2 years since I started this company. Just absorbing a lot of knowledge on those areas.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Forenza. This has been such a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this. And one last question that we ask every single guest that comes on the podcast is, what is your definition of wealth?
Wealth is, I think it's being content. Any place you are in life, it's being content of who you are, even when things go downhill, just being aware that that's part of life. There was one of those things that I took out of one of my meditation teachers 7 years ago. It's like this kind of mantra is like, this is a moment of suffering, and suffering is part of life. So when you are down, when things don't work the way you expected, that's something that I like to tell myself, that the fact that life is not unfolding the way you expected doesn't mean that it's bad. We're taught since we are kids to know that things that don't work are bad, or right, but the reality is they are part of life. And so accepting suffering, it's part of life, and that's, I think, the secret to contentment, to being content, being happy with what you have every day. And that's, I think, is the biggest wealth that you can build, is the wealth of your emotional well-being, and everything is a byproduct of it, including financial wealth. It's a byproduct of it. So I think that's my definition of wealth, I think.
Yeah. No,
wow. And I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for stimulating the thoughts and the reflection on it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I could see you ruminating and getting deep on it. So that was good. I love what you said there, right? And kind of like linking wealth to contentment. And I think I may go as far as to say, contentment is the secret to happiness. In a world where we have social media and we're constantly being stimulated by whether it's, where someone else is and you're not there, what someone else has and you don't have, like you're constantly seeing this bar being raised for you. It's not even kind of like your own desires. It's just what people have. And then you start to see it and it starts to stimulate your own desires somehow. And if you're not able to ground yourself with that contentment and always coming back and realizing wherever you are, it's perfect. You're good where you are, right? You're where you are for a reason. Then that happiness starts to kind of evaporate and then you just never find it. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation. Dr. Forenza, we're so excited that you came on to GWP. And for people that are listening, what is the best way they can find you or even learn more about Awear, the product that we've talked about so much on this podcast today?
So just contact me through our website. There's a wait list there, and just put your email and say you want to talk to me, or just check me on LinkedIn and send me a message on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's perfect. And full disclosure, I signed up for your wait list. I haven't gotten my Awear device yet, but once I get it, guys, you're going to see it. It's going to be like a patch on the back of my ear. Can you show the people what it looks like? Right?
Yeah, this is the prototype.
Yeah.
Right?
So once I get mine, you're going to see me walking around with it, and just know my brain waves are going to be getting picked up and measured. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for your support, Papa.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thank you.